Mason Clark is on Amulet Titan in the Modern Seat, and Teresa's on Gruul Aggro and Standard. Their opponents, Eric Rill, Izzet Delver, James Wheeler on Burn, and this is interesting, Chris Kronenberger on Merfolk. We actually have 2 green aggro decks.
I love Merfolk. So this is a deck that has kind of been very quiet in its results because it can suffer against Goblin Chain Whirler. That's going to be a pressure point from foe's side. But the Merfolk deck is able to just go so wide with cards like Deeproot Waters.
Yeah, we do. And yeah, we're taking a read at the card. Incubation?
Yes, it's like Ancient Stirrings for creatures. You get to look at the top 5 cards of your deck, reveal a creature up to 1 creature.
So it's commune with nature.
No, it's like Ancient Stirrings.
Oh no.
We're not.
Oh wow. That's so. That is. Oh man, making me feel old.
Look, I was there. I was playing when Champions of Kamigawa came out. I'm just going to take it from you. Ancient Stirring sounds way more broken. And just like that, the jig is up.
Yeah. Fine. Yeah, so it's not actually, right, we get a Silvergill Adept off of it.
There's always a point. Incongruity will show up in some of the Bant Tokens decks. You might not be sure. And Silvergill Adept. We know what's coming.
Growth Chamber Guardian for Teresa. So if both these players are going to curve out, a lot of times when we think about a Legacy or modern Merfolk deck, we think about a deck that's just full up on the Lords. If we play a Creature Mirror, it's going to outscale. Is that still going to be the case in Standard?
Right, so here, foe just needs to make sure that she can tag the Lords, and then her creatures will probably kill Kronenberger in the interim before he's able to build back up and kind of get those synergies online.
Right.
If she doesn't have anything like Lightning Strike, Goblin Chain Whirler, etc., then Merfolk is just going to go so far over the top of cards like Growth Chamber Guardian.
So she'll do well to get some damage in early. It's a second Growth Chamber Guardian from hand after an attack for 2. Now, she did do something here which you had mentioned in the deck, the ability to curve something like Growth Chamber Guardian or a green creature into Goblin Chain Whirler, thanks to dual lands. But wasn't actually a Chain Whirler here for her, so wasn't able to make the play.
It does not feel good to go turn 3 cast Growth Chamber Guardian. That is not what you want to be doing on turn 3 with things named Growth Chamber Guardian.
The other 3 is Gruul Spellbreaker, possibility in the deck at 3 mana.
And Deeproot Waters coming down is the card that will let Kronenberger start to really build up here. So this is one that whenever Kronenberg casts a Merfolk spell, he's going to get to create a 1/1 hexproof Merfolk. And that's just the thing where he just gets an endless supply of chump blockers to be able to buy him time to build up these synergies.
So we saw 1/1 Hexproofs be really effective against Ross Miriam's Teamer Reclamation deck yesterday. Now, against a Gruul aggro deck, I'm a bit concerned that 1/1s, even though you do get a lot of them, are going to have trouble meaningfully interacting with these creatures.
Oh, there's certainly a problem here where all of the cards that we see Kronenberger committing to the battlefield at this point, the Silvergill Adept 1/1s from Deeproot Waters and so forth, are going to get Chain Whirled.
Yeah. Block from Silvergill Adept on board. This is a tempo play. If Teresa wants to save it, she has to pay her 3 mana to adapt the Guardian this turn.
Right, and we're going to see a lot of very aggressive chump blocking with anything that has 1 toughness, just because Kronenberger just wants time and otherwise runs the risk of not getting any kind of value out of the 1/1s.
Speaking of value, Teresa will take the adapt on the block, so she pays all 3 of her mana, turns the Growth Chamber Guardian into a 4/4, finds another one, and hits in for 2. 20-16 right now in favor of Gruul aggro.
And the idea here is foe didn't really have anything to do with 3 mana last turn, so if your options are let the trade happen and then just cast, say, another 2/2 or something to that effect post-combat, or have a 4/4 in play, you're going to keep the 4/4 on the battlefield.
Yeah, I mean, when she has the 4th land, she does, it's a mountain. This may, I guess the thing it could have done is this might have delayed a Rekindling Phoenix for a turn. That's a possibility here.
Exactly, and all that Kronenberg wants here is time.
To get that time, may need some lands. Fourth land from Kronenberger. He'll set up 4. Deeproot Elite, making a 1/1 Merfolk. He had to shock here.
And this is where things start to really get out of control with Deep-Root Waters, because this triggers whenever a Merfolk enters the battlefield, not when one is cast.
Right, and so this is just pretty great. So the Deep-Root Elite is cast. Now, because that's a cast trigger, the first 1/1 isn't going to trigger it, because Deep-Root's not in play yet. But from here on out, every time you cast a Merfolk, he'll get a trigger, and then he'll get a 1/1 counter.
Exactly, and this is what's going to help these 1/1s survive something like Goblin Chainwhirler.
All right, so let's walk it through. Silvergill Adept, revealing Kumena. So with the cast trigger, getting a 1/1 Merfolk token. Now the Merfolk token triggers Deepwater Elite, or Deep-Root Elite. Whenever another Merfolk enters the battlefield, get a 1/1 counter. Chris will put that on any of the creatures here. I assume you want to protect the Deep-Root Elite?
Right. This is something where if you have the ability to save it from a Chainwhirler, you want to put it on there. But you're also kind of incentivized to just put it on a token. You know, we didn't see Foe with an earlier Chainwhirler, so if Kronenberger just wants to say, all right, you have to have it right now, then you could see him putting it on a 1/1 instead in order to just say, you're more likely to use real removal on my Deep-Root Elite anyway. Let's not put our eggs in that basket.
Silvergill Adept draws a card and another 1/1 counter, thanks to Deep-Root Elite and Cronin not sharing the counters. Both of them go onto the Hexproof token.
Right, and the idea here is eventually if you just turn this token into a 5/5.
Yeah, 5/5 Hexproof. It's really hard for Gruul to get past it.
Yeah, that's we like to joke about that. That kind of just sounds like a draft common, right?
Yeah.
But that's, you laugh at it until you have to beat one with your creature deck.
Yeah, and you're seeing just how fast Chris has gotten to the board. He's only at only taken damage to go to 14. There's still plenty of room to work with this.
And here we see the Kumena that was revealed off of the Silvergill Adept by Kronenberger last turn. And this card is almost like the Planeswalker of the Merfolk deck, where getting to cast this and untap with it more than once is just going to slam the door shut.
Here's Goblin Chainwhirler. Teresa, she names Warrior. But as you mentioned, it does take... Well, actually, going to take care of most cards because Kronenberger hadn't shared the counters yet. The 3/3 Hexproof survives, but nothing else does.
Gonna give this play a Kitchen Finks out of 10.
Oof. Yeah. This one's great. Now, it feels like Chris missed an opportunity to save that Deep-Root Elite.
Right, and at that point, he was more likely to just put Foe on quote-unquote real spot removal rather than a Chainwhirler, since she didn't play one before.
Yeah, there were already good opportunities. This might have been a top deck.
Exactly. That's kind of what it's looking like from Kronenberger's side. But with this Deep-Root Water, it's really not that hard for him to rebuild. Most of the creatures that got swept up were things like Silvergill Adept or incidental tokens that Deep-Root Waters put onto the battlefield.
Yeah, the Silvergill Adept and the token going away didn't seem like that was too consequential. Losing Deep-Root Elite does hurt here because it was going to produce so many counters with this Deep-Root Waters.
Exactly. And, you know, with that Kumena in hand, if Kronenberger just has, say, a 2-mana Merfolk, a land in that Kumena, then all of a sudden, both of those Merfolk make 2 more tokens, and you can activate the final ability on Kumena to just start antheming all of your creatures every turn.
Kronenberger shocks down to 7. He's going to have to do something quick. Another Deep-Root Elite. That's a great place to start. Here's a token. Here's the 1/1. 3 mana. It's Kumena, the card we knew about. That makes another token. The token puts a 1/1 onto the Deep-Root Elite. This time he's going to try to save it.
We're not falling for that again.
Yeah. Kumena puts a counter onto itself. And 5 Merfolk in play, so that second ability of Kumena can come up. Kumena gives the ability to tap 5 untapped Merfolk to put a 1/1 counter on each Merfolk you control.
And this is where things really start to get out of control. This Kumena isn't going to die to even something like Lava Coil.
Right.
And so you're kind of just stuck hoping that you're able to get through somehow. You know, Kronenberger's not very interested in tapping all of his blockers down before Teresa's combat step, so right now a spot removal spell could do something. Yeah. But the door is closing pretty quickly for Foe.
And that's why Kronenberger actually put the counter on the Kumena, because the counter wasn't there, and Teresa pre-combat cast Lava Coil. He'd be in a really tough spot. He'd probably just have to lose the Kumena. Obviously couldn't tap his blockers.
Exactly.
But by having it be a 3/5 here, it's a lot nicer. Now, one thing this can happen is flyers. He's still a bit soft to that, and that's the play for Teresa. It's Skargan Hellkite, 4/4 flying Riot for 4 mana, deals 2 damage divided any way you choose, but the creature has to have a 1/1 counter on it to do that. And it doesn't right now. It just attacks in with haste to put Chris down to 3.
And this is how these Merfolk decks end up losing most of the time, is Reach is something that's very hard to deal with. It takes a few turns to build up this sort of tank or this army of creatures to block, but blocking doesn't really do much if their creatures have evasion.
No, the only way we're really looking at out of the main stance of this is Merfolk Trickster, which could remove the flying for a turn from that Skargan Hellkite.
And that would be such a big game, because then that gives Kronenberger the opportunity to block it and kill it. So after that,
Right.
Foe's in a spot where she has to find another form of reach. But that isn't even getting into the fact that Kronenberger's in lightning strike range right now.
Jade Bearer for Kronenberger. A lot of 1/1 counters going to be thrown around here. So first, with it on the stack, makes a token, gets a 1/1 counter. Then Bear comes into play, puts a 1/1 counter on a creature, and then another one.
And it's not impossible for something to the effect of Tempest Caller to just win out of nowhere from here if it were in Kronenberger's deck.
Yeah, we sometimes see some here, but it does not look like... His main deck is just pretty stock, right? It's all 4-ofs here, and then 2 Merfolk Trickster.
Look, sometimes you just want to play some clean Magic. I can respect that.
But though that 2-of, that is the card he wants to have here. He has, it looks like, another Incubation in hand, so...
Get to
That-
incongruity.
Yeah, the incongruity half, that could take care of the flyer.
Right, and that's a big card here, because when you have this much on the ground in the battlefield blocking, that 3/3 doesn't even count as a card. That's effectively just a 3-mana exile target creature.
4/4 Merfolk are going to attack. Teresa could double block. Looks like she's going to do that with a pair of 2/2s. This is actually offering just a 2-for-1 trade.
Right, and the thought here is that those cards aren't really getting through anyway, so if they're not relevant to the battlefield, you might as well just protect your life total while you can and get some value, because at some point, it's going to outgrow that.
Back to Teresa we go. Swings with the flyer. It's going to be incongruity. It's the other half of incubation, incongruity. Exile target creature. That creature's controller creates a 3/3 green frog lizard token. Now we are looking at 3 life points. Another dragon, perhaps. Maybe a lightning strike. But she's going to need one rather quickly. This Merfolk deck is not going to be slow about turning the corner.
Right, this is a spot where she's very likely just facing down lethal. We can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Plus 6 is 21.
Yeah. So
Just
that's a
on
little,
the battlefield?
yeah, it's 21 on the battlefield. It's a little short because you'd have to get past those blockers. You can't do the full alpha unless it's lethal.
Exactly. We're getting us a frog lizard.
Modern Classic competitors, your pairings for round 5 are available online at pairings.
And 3/3 there. Yeah, back to tree. So if it's not lethal this turn, right, Rekindling Phoenix and Crowl Harpooner for Teresa. But Rekindling Phoenix is pretty big.
Right, and the only form of evasion that Kronenberger really has here is this Kumina, and that's just not close to enough.
Now, interesting, instead of pumping, Kronenberger actually tapped 6 to draw 2 cards.
You're digging into another copy of Incongruity here, because that's
Yeah.
the only way he stays in the game. That, Merfolk Trickster, etc.
Did he find it? That's going to be the question.
Benthic Biomancer is such a huge
Okay,
draw here.
Benthic Biomancer, so talk me through it.
All right, so you see we have the Deep Root Elite, which lets you put counters on things. You can have that synergize with the triggered ability in the Benthic Biomancer to loot a lot.
Yes, whenever one or more 1/1 counters put on Benthic Biomancer, you draw, then discard. So Biomancer in the stack, Merfolk token. Benthic Biomancer now resolves, gets to put a counter somewhere.
And it looks like Kronenberger is having the +1 counter trigger target the Benthic Biomancer, is retaining priority and evolving it in response to get an extra loot in.
Right, so you need to adapt here because once a creature has a 1/1 counter, you can't adapt again. So here's the first loot. There's a counter on it. Now the trigger is going to resolve from Deep Root Elite. Second one on it, another loot.
And this is one of the cards that has given the deck just so much more play since Ravnica Allegiance came out. An additional 1-drop, and look at the card filtering. Those were lands before, and they're spells now.
Looking at 4 outs, there's 2 more copies of Incongruity, along with 2 copies of Merfolk Trickster. Here's another Benthic Biomancer from Kronenberger. He does in his hand have Merfolk Mistbinder, the 2/2 Lord.
Raise your hand to assist them in finding their seats.
Seems unlikely right now that his attack will be lethal, though. Even with that +1 to the team.
So if there are 5 Summoning Sick Merfolk that he can tap to Anthem with Kumena, and then the Mistbinder is an Anthem as well, there are 5 blockers for 3 creatures getting through, and these 3 smallest creatures would be 3, 6, 10, which is not lethal.
Yeah, it's not going to completely add up. Teresa can... The Rekindling Phoenix also comes back on top of it.
Exactly.
Give it one more turn, and I think Chris has this.
Right, this is the spot where Kronenberger is likely just going to have to pass and hope that once Teresa attacks with only the Phoenix, Kronenberger gets a shot to draw several cards with this Kumena and spike the Trickster or the Incongruity that he needs to not die.
Hold on, I want to back up for a second and look at Chris's lands.
He has Hinterland Harbor, Brooding Pool, Forest.
Okay, so he has 3 untapped. I saw the Forest. I was checking to make sure he had the double blue.
Right.
That one he does. Rekindling Phoenix going to attack, and here we go. Gonna have to draw some cards. He doesn't have the answer just yet. 1 draw off the tokens. Did that do it? No. Another draw off these tokens. Did that do it? Merfolk Trickster or Incubation Incongruity. A 3rd draw off the tokens. Did that do it? No, it did not. Teresa takes game 1. And this is the scary part, right? Gruul deals 20. It does not deal 25. It does not deal 30 in this matchup. You are hoping to get to 20 before terrible things happen.
That was incredible from Foe. That was so well. She navigated that perfectly to just come through. She's generally a limited player, and you see these combat skills coming out. She's played several Pro Tours on the back of her limited finishes.
All right, let's take a look at the sideboards from the players. So Teresa up a game. She's got Cinder Vines. She's got Domri, 2 more Crowl Harpooners, Sorcerer Spyglass, Fiery Cannonade, a Carnage Tyrant, a 3rd Lava Coil, and then a copy of Status Statue.
So the big things you're going to be looking at here, this is definitely a deck where the Status Statue is great. The combo here is you cast your Goblin Chain Whirler, trigger on the stack, status it, and then it gains Death Touch. It shoots everything for 1, and since the Goblin Chain Whirler has Death Touch, it kills all of the creatures. That's a way to super punish the deck for tanking up there. Then you have things like Lava Coil, which can break up some synergies. Sorceress Spyglass is something you could be looking at if you want to just answer Kumena, since the deck's kind of full of air without Kumena doing anything for it. Fiery Cannonade is very good at mopping up all of the tokens. And those are really what she's going to be looking at here, especially since some of her ground-pounding creatures are going to have trouble punching through things like Deep Root Waters.
It actually feels like her main deck has a lot of play in this matchup. Removal with pretty low-to-the-ground threats. Some things I might see getting moving off of Direfleet Daredevil, card that does not play too much in the matchup. You're just really boarding out some of your worst creatures.
Right, Direfleet Daredevil and Crowl Harpooner, for example, are just really not going to play very well here.
Right, but everything else seems to line up in a pretty decent way for Teresa.
Yes.
On Kronenberger's side, he has 4 Crowl Harpooners, 4 Negate, 2 Shaper Sanctuary, 2 Disdainful Stroke, 2 Sleep, and then the 3rd Merfolk Trickster.
So the big thing you're trying to do here is just buy time and get your synergies online. Merfolk Trickster is something that's incredible against any of the creature decks. That last game, we spent, 3 consecutive turns going, if he can draw a Merfolk Trickster, if he can draw a Merfolk Trickster, and so on. So he's definitely going to be bringing that one in. Sleep is incredible. It's a card that can act as a pseudo-fog if he needs that to happen. And most importantly, there was, 2 turns in there where if he could have cast Sleep in Alpha'd with his team, he would have dealt almost exactly 20, 21 points of damage and just closed the door from nowhere.
So game number 2. These teams currently at 9 and 3. Some updates. Both Teresa's teammates, Jeff Chow and Mason Clark, also have game wins. On the middle table, the modern matchup is going to 3 as James Wheeler has the sole win for his team in that matchup. Now, standings for the round, see what's going on. We mentioned Dilks, Ayers, and Magales looking pretty good going forward in this tournament. There's 3 more rounds. Hard to see them falling out of the top 8. Same is true for our defending Cincinnati champions, Andrew Tenjum, Matt Hoey, and Joe Bernal, 10-1-1. Meantime, 10-2, good record, currently in position for top 8. Team of Ruben Ingram, Scarin, and then Johnson, Uppel, and Fogel. we start looking at teams that need some help. So Ethan Gajewski, Abe Corrigan, and Kellen Pastor, they were in second last round. They dropped to 6 with the loss. And we'll see, this is kind of where our middle-of-the-pack 9-3s are. Eric Rill's team currently sitting in 9th. Close to a top 8, but not quite there. Teresa Foe's team, similar position here. As well as the team of Collins Mullen, Will Pulliam's team. They are 9-3. And then we go down the list here, and it's unclear. I think Austin Collins' team still in the running. A 4th straight loss, though, for Team BCW drops them into 13th, 19th rather. Their breakers of all the 8-4s are probably the best.
Yeah, absolutely. They won their first 8 rounds and they lost after that, but that means the people they've been losing to are people who are succeeding. So their opponent match win percentage is going to be through the roof.
Right. So that's the one bright gem here. If they can rally and win the last 3, I do still think they have a chance for top 8.
Oh, if an X4 squeaks in, it's definitely going to be the ones who lost their later rounds.
Yeah. The last team here, Garnier, Silberman, and Camerow, that is not going to work at 7-5. Both players have drawn here for game number 2. Kronenberger will be on the play. And it looks like has taken a mulligan, at least one to start here.
There are definitely some times where you have the riskier hands you might keep on your own, but when your friends are leaning on your record, you kind of have to look over and go, hey, so are you going to hate me if I keep this and it doesn't work out? And the teammate just has to kind of, smack you in the back of the head and say, what are you talking about? Why would you ever keep this? Over on our modern table, Mason Clark, actually a recent invitational qualifier winner with the Amulet Titan strategy 2 weeks ago, if memory serves.
Doing well again this weekend, same deck.
Yep, going to be seeing him at our invitational up at SCGCIN this summer.
Yeah, Burn actually is a matchup that can be pretty reasonable for Amulet Titan. It's one of the draws to playing it over the other big mana decks. It tends to have the best Burn matchup of the 3.
How many Kabira Crossroads do you think Burn can beat?
I mean, yeah, it's a land 1. It's a land. Yeah, once in your opener, it's incredible. In that matchup, it's a land that almost draws like 2/3 of a card when you play it.
Exactly. And
that's not reasonable.
Sometimes it's almost a full card if they have lands. So since the Burn deck has some of their draws are blanks, it feels like a full card sometimes.
It's pretty good. You try to not play it just once. Just keep playing it.
Bet you can't have just one.
6 for Kronenberger. He's keeping. And we start off on Hinterland Harbor. Not ideal for the Merfolk deck, but maybe good things to come.
All right, basic land off the top can do it.
And it's just going to be Crowl Harpooner. Those are out of the sideboard. 4 copies in the sideboard. But, you'll cast one anyway.
And it's a way that he can fight down the Hellkite that we saw kind of dominate the last game.
And a Crowl Harpooner of Teresa's own. So 3-2 set to trade here. Now Teresa on the draw. Against him both on the draw with her opponent on the mulligan. And in this matchup, I think all 3 of those things that are going to make her want to trade.
Exactly. She just kind of wants to reduce the battlefield as much as possible because at the end of the day, Kronenberger is a synergy deck, and you just want them to have as few resources as possible.
Deep-root Water is the play for Kronenberger. That is one that over time will give him those extra resources.
And Foe, it looked like she had an unclaimed territory in her hand. So it looks like she's going to make her land drop and is just trying to figure out if she wants to deploy something like Goblin Chain Whirler when it might not be worth as much value as she wants.
Trying consulting here with Mason Clark. And yeah, most
it's kind of the nice thing about these team tournaments, having the ability to say, I'm unsure about this. What do you think? If someone's on your team, you naturally respect them as a player.
She will offer the trade.
When you see this Deep-root Waters on the battlefield, you have to know that the days that you get damage in with your 3-2 are pretty limited.
Yeah, as soon as 2 1/1s show up, that's going to be an easy trade. And then you didn't really trade with a card at all.
Exactly. This card is very similar to Lingering Souls in Modern.
As long as all your cards are Merfolk, it doesn't ask much for you.
Let's then compare it to Mox Opal instead, where the card's only busted if you build your deck around it.
But it's real busted in those decks.
Exactly.
Yeah.
When you end up playing the deck where it's built around it.
Oof. Goblin Chain Whirler, turn 3 play from Teresa. No 1/1s to clean up just yet, but even with nothing on the board, Chain Whirler is pretty great.
It is one of the creatures that, even just as a 3/3 first strike, is very good at combat.
And some big plays here for Chris. So it starts with Merfolk Mistbinder. Trigger makes a 1/1 token. Another Mistbinder makes another token. Well, that is a 12 power there. Not too bad.
No big deal. Speaking of Modern, that's got to be Modern power levels, right? Those are basically just Tarmogoyfs.
Chain Whirler wouldn't have done much anyway, you know? Now, if this is a window, if Teresa still has Lightning Strikes, they are still good here. The Merfolk Mistbinders are only 3/3s, as they only give +1/+1 to other Merfolk.
This is actually a strange spot where it doesn't look good, but this Goblin Chain Whirler can attack if she wants to bluff several different things.
Looks like no bluff here. It's going to be Lava Coil on one Mistbinder, Lava Coil on another one. So they're both exiled. Now it's just a pair of 1/1s, and she'll attack back in. Chris dropping to 16. No problem. You mentioned the more we trade here, the better it is for Teresa, and she's really showing us that.
Oh, absolutely. She just wants those cards off the battlefield, wants to remove the options that Kronenberger has available to him.
Back to Kronenberger we go. 2 cards in hand. Starts on Benthic Biomancer. Gets a 1/1. He's gonna go. Did he miss? He missed the trigger, didn't he?
He missed that trigger.
Yeah. Yeah, he already adapted it, and because it's a cast trigger and not an enter the battlefield trigger, the judge isn't going to give him that one.
No, when you get these deep in the tournaments, I believe the opponent is allowed to try and put it on the stack, but there's no way this deep into this high stakes an event that's going to happen.
Yeah, it's attacking for just 2, Teresa to 18.
Also, Magic players, if you're interested in the 2 o'clock standard challenge, this is our last.
And it looks like Teresa picked up a copy of Rekindling Phoenix off the top of her library, so now she has to decide between the Hellkite and the Phoenix.
Both seem so good here. Just 1 card in hand for Kronenberger. It's probably a good card because Benthic Biomancer looted, so it's better than Jade Bear. That was the discard off the Benthic Biomancer. And I like this from Teresa. Rather than trying to control here, she's just going to go straight for the attack.
Kill him.
It's the Skargan Hellkite. That swings in for 4. The Goblin Chain Whirler for 3. Kronenberger down to 9. An update on the Legacy table. Eric Rill takes game number 2, so that one's all tied up at 1 as well.
And I see a copy of Merfolk Trickster hiding out in Kronenberger's hand. So this does give him the ability to block this Hellkite if he wants to put, say, Benthic Biomancer and the Merfolk Trickster in front of it. That's a double block that gets it off the battlefield. You know, you don't feel good about the 2-for-1, but the dragon's gone, and that's what's important.
Yeah, and just not winning the race. Chris swings in for 2, and now we see Gruul Spellbreaker. It's a swing for what could be lethal. It's for 10. He goes to attacks, and Chris actually stops, and Teresa goes for the attacks. He says, wait, hold on. So maybe we think Merfolk Trickster or something like that.
Right, and this may be the spot where he actually just realizes that his way back into this game does not involve trading that many resources, and he would rather just tap the Hellkite before it can attack in order to keep this Biomancer and the Trickster around for an additional turn.
Yeah, even with Merfolk Trickster, you can eat an attacker, but that's about it.
Right.
There's big numbers on them. Trickster removes the abilities from a creature, but it doesn't actually just make it a 0/1.
Right, and you can't target the Spellbreaker because it has hexproof.
Right.
So you're locked into just targeting a Chain Whirler, double blocking the Chain Whirler, and taking 7 down to 2 when there's a 4/4 flyer on the battlefield.
I guess you can target the flyer and then double block it and trade your whole board for it.
Yeah, and that just doesn't feel like much of a winning strategy. You really just need to have your resources in order for your synergy deck to be able to build up on the things that it wants.
So because of that, he uses the Trickster before combat. Almost missed that Deep Root Waters trigger.
He got that one. Everybody gets one.
Yeah. That's one where the judge is going to go ahead and give it to him. It's out of order sequencing, but still was deemed, intent was there.
Yeah, he caught it before anything had changed, and it was pretty obvious that he just slammed the card down, pointed at the thing, and said, "Oh, my trigger too."
Yeah. That sort of thing that if the judges watch, the judge can do it at their discretion. But even now, okay, so the 4/4's tapped. Right, the other option is you let it attack, you do this in combat and try to block it. So now they're trying to decide, does Teresa still attack here?
The Chain Whirler attack is still good. Even say
If he blocks with everything, let's see, here's the swing, right? If it's a block with everything, first strike kills a 2/2 and a 1/1. And then it takes 2. Yeah, there's no way to kill it. So it's a chump block. Chris loses the token. And Teresa continues more pressure, follows up with Growth Chamber Guardian. And nothing but a pass from Kronenberger does not signal a lot of strength here.
No, and this is a spot where he really needed to find some way to actually claw back into the game. Not losing is not the same thing as getting closer to winning, and he's kind of just not losing at the moment.
We're looking at something like Kumena could play, and even then it needs another thing to help it.
That one's pretty rough too, just because that doesn't do anything about the Hellkite, but it does at least check the battlefield for a turn. Things are just so rough right now.
A swing. Double block, try to take out the Spellbreaker, but Teresa's ready with Shock, which means it's a 2-for-1 on the Spellbreaker. Spellbreaker gets both blockers. Both the creatures chump block. Chris goes down to 5, and Teresa doesn't lose anything. And oh, by the way, the last card is Rekindling Phoenix. So that's definitely not going to help. Teresa wins 2-0 and gets the first match for her team.
And that's exactly what we want to see there. It very much was a sort of tempo strategy from Teresa's side of the battlefield where she just applied pressure, and then while she was doing that was able to pick apart the synergy pieces that Kronenberger was able to present, just those Mistbinders, for example, that we saw. Without those cards, the Merfolk cards are kind of mopey. That's how these tribal decks tend to function, is they have their enablers and their payoff cards, and if you answer the payoff cards, kind of just a bunch of embarrassing pieces of cardboard that say Merfolk on them. It's a really rough spot for Kronenberger.
All right. And you saw that handshake in the middle, and we're still going. James Wheeler taking game number 3. Burn is the winner there, which means the match is going to rely on Jeff Zhao versus Eric Rill. Is it Delver versus Lands? The only Lands player here in day 2. It feels weird saying that on the SCG Tour where a lot of these teams dial in Lands in the Legacy seat.
Right, and honestly, it's one of the decks that the format's pretty hostile to right now. There's a lot of back-to-basics running around. Is it Delver has access to Blood Moon. People have things like the Golgari Depths deck on their radar, so they are packing their Wastelands. They have answers to your Depth Stage combo. It's kind of a rough spot to be trying to land to Life from Loam people.
Game number 3 puts Jeff Zhao on the play. And here we start things off. It is Thespian Stage, Mox Diamond. And Exploration on turn 1. So sometimes Lands runs you out of the building in the first few turns of the game. It's Glacial Chasm from the Vault Realms. Glacial Chasm is the discard. Makes another land drop here. Just down to 2 cards is Zhao. 3 mana available on the first turn. Not too bad. It's kind of if Eric leads off on a land that isn't Wasteland, he just might lose the game.
Right, and there's even a spot where that's not getting you much closer to winning. Blood Moon sounds like a great card, but Eric Rill will take 20 the turn before he can cast it.
Yeah, these uncontested starts. A Mox Diamond start or an Exploration start can be threatening out of the Lands deck. Starts that have both of them can run away with the game.
Exactly. This is just a situation where Zhao is so far ahead in terms of development. And really, these Delver decks, the way that they try to win, tempo strategies in general want to get a little bit ahead and then keep the game there while applying pressure. And when you're this far behind, it can be hard to pull the game back into your control.
See right now, already consulting with his teammates. Island Ponder. Shields down for the combo here, if it shows up.
Yeah, and the thought may be that Rill could have either developed a threat here or pondered, and when you're this far behind, you almost just need to say, all right, I know this combo's going to happen. I can't stop it. What can I do to get that off? He's looking for, say, Vapor Snag or something to that effect in order to deal with Marat Lage.
Back to Jeff. No life from the Loam. He'll cast another Exploration. That's not actually going to be too threatening. And a very weak turn here, as that was his only play. That's a sigh of relief for Eric
Ooh.
Rill.
That's big. We even see a Wasteland hiding out in Eric's hand.
It kind of looks right. Well, he didn't die last turn, so maybe not play the Wasteland. We'll just fetch and play some cards and...
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, right?
You just want to get out on the battlefield. You need to be applying pressure. You can't just trade one for one a bunch and hope your cards end up being more powerful than the deck that can make an indestructible 20/20.
Well, I think it's interesting, even with the Wasteland in his hand, that he would make Volcanic Island this turn, just really prioritizing the pressure. It does mean that there's another turn where he has to dodge Jeff top-decking a Dark Depths. But here's Smash to Smithereens on the Mox Opal from
this
Rill.
Is such a big play. That's his colored mana source.
Okay, that's true.
Before
Takes
this, one of
3.
Zhao's best draws was something like Life from the Loam, and now he can't cast it without ghost quartering himself.
Yeah. Does draw Chalice of the Void. And right, just the turn you smash to Smithereens a Mox Opal, or a Mox Diamond, Chalice of the Void shows up. That's a pretty big beat for Eric that this is stuck onto the board.
So if you're in Eric's seat, do you think that he just top-decked that, or do you think he's a master for waiting until
the
after
Chalice?
the Smash/Abrade turn to cast this Chalice on one?
Top deck, probably. We're going to get a look at the hand. Vendilion Click from Rill. Targets Jeff. Yeah, during the draw. Jeff has Tireless Tracker, Punishing Fire, Mox Diamond. If you're on, I was going to say if you're on the mana denial strategy, you take the diamond except there's no land in the hand yet. Yeah, and I think keep it is the play. No Punishing Fire, no go over the burn rules yet to go with Punishing Fire.
Nope, and Wasteland's even able to check the card. This is exactly what the Dilver deck is looking for. It just wanted a little bit of pressure, so now Rill can kind of parry the things that Zhao tries to get online while attacking for 3 every turn.
Swings in for 3, Jeff to 14. There's already one Wasteland in play, and now Rill goes to work. He takes care of Thespian Stage with a Wasteland. And his land for the turn is another one. He's going to get both the lands.
And this is a spot where Zhao's likely thinking of just ghost quartering himself here in order to get a basic online, so he still has the out of drawing to things like Life from the Loam or something to that effect, where he knows this game's going to go for 3 or 4 more turns, and he's trying to say, all right, how do I put myself in a position where those 3 to 4 draw steps matter?
So because of that line, I kind of wish that Eric had played the other Wasteland first this turn before firing off either of them, so that if Jeff went for that play, he could waste it again in response.
Right, and the idea here is trying to put Zhao in a spot where he doesn't make that play. You want to make it look like, okay, you're going to get to keep your other land. Lean on that Mox Diamond in your hand instead, and then you're able to just, quote-unquote, just get him.
Yeah. Well, if you had the other Wasteland right, you could do both. If he goes quarter, you just Wasteland the same
You're
thing
right.
again.
You're absolutely correct.
Players, that is time in the round. Active player finish your turn.
And it's not going to matter either way. Jeff didn't go for the play. So, yeah, Wasteland in Eric's hand. If he fires off Wasteland, he's going to get ghost quartered in response, but that might be fine. He plays basics.
PM Standard Challenge players, your pairings are now posted near the gathering point.
Young Pyromancer then going to be the follow-up for Eric, he says. And there's the other Wasteland, and he'll go for the Ghost Quarter. So, no lands on Jeff's side.
Ooh, you can see the world's worst price of progress in Rill's hand.
Well, Jeff does draw a land. It's the Tabernacle at Pendrell Vale.
That's his first of 3 land drops.
Yeah, that's going to make him pay. Yeah, Eric can pay. Now, there was also the option he could have used Mox Diamond there and discarded the Tabernacle.
And you just don't really want to do that. This is something where you're almost getting a free double Rashadan port out of it.
Okay. Still, taking 5. It's a swing in from Eric. Jeff down to 9. I'm feeling like he did need the mana. He's got a 2-turn clock facing on the other side.
Yeah,
Just
this
passes.
is a spot where he was kind of just hoping to get lucky from here. Maybe hope to rip a Wasteland or something to that effect, so it then kills one of Rill's creatures that way, and it didn't work out.
First of 2 attacks from Rill puts Jeff down to 4. He's got 1 more turn. Can he do it? Passes. Eric, the untap, the pay, the attack. And the handshake. Eric Rill picking up the win in the match, and that's going to be the round. Rill, Wheeler, and Kronenberger pick up the win. A great game, 2 great games from Teresa Foe gets the win there, but it is not enough. Both her teammates losing game 3s. They're going to drop to 9-4. And for Eric Rill, 10-3.